Hello, welcome to another live. Hello, Charmaine. Sometimes we start a little bit later than usual. I apologize egregiously. Um, let me start. Why isn't this allowing me to join Charmaine? Welcome again. Charmaine, apparently you need to update your app in order to join in. Shall I end it and then start again? I yes. Let me just try. Okay. In the meantime, how are you all? How are you all? It's been an afternoon filled with crazy and with a crazy amount of adventure. I'm very well, thank you. I hope you are too. I'm just waiting to see what happens with the updating of the app. It's starting to get hotter, is it just me? Yes. Hello,
Hello,
Charmaine.
hooray!
Hello, we're on. I was on another call before this, and it slightly overran because
Uh,
I have to. I usually do a little reel in order to get the juices flowing for what may happen later on. So yeah, that's kind of it. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, I'm glad I'm on now. It's like, yeah, I hate when they force you to update your app. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that.
It really is annoying, and I
Yes,
think they've changed certain things around. Let me just check something because I'm trying. I always come on here beforehand so I can check what's going on.
right.
And they've been playing around with the live, so I'm not sure what happened to the picture sharing function.
Yeah.
Hey ho,
Mm, okay.
it shouldn't cause too much of a problem. I'm just wondering where they put it.
Mm,
But nonetheless, let's begin the live.
yes.
Welcome, Charmaine.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's been a long time coming. In the sense that we have, I think we've been speaking for a short amount of time, but I've been looking at your work for quite a while now,
Yeah.
and just really enjoyed seeing it in its different iterations.
Yes.
Especially your show last year at Tiwani Contemporary, which is now your gallery.
Yes, I know. Yeah. That was an awesome, that was like a breakout, yeah, breakout show. It's like, yeah, I was just really thrilled to be asked. I honestly didn't think that it would end up in me being represented by them. So, yeah, I was just, yeah, amazed and happy and all of that. So, yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your current um, trajectory in terms of where did you start in the artistic sense? Because I know your career was in marketing. Give us where you are, where you think you currently stand.
Right, this is my third career now, so I've reinvented myself a couple of times before. I originally started out as a footwear designer, so I used to make shoes, really high-end couture shoes, and I used to kind of do shows like the couture collections at the Ritz and stuff like that. And then 89, 90, when the whole kind of recession hit, my business went under as well. There's a lot of things that contributed to that. So I kind of so yes, so it was tricky because there's a lot of issues being a person of color making shoes in a white male dominated footwear industry. So even getting supplies was really hard. It was tough. It was really, really tough. I know a couple of people who have managed to survive that. But for me, I suppose working in fashion anyway, you need a ton of money. You need a lot of backing behind you. I was kind of really green when I went into that, thinking, oh, you know, people just love my shoes and buy them and everything else, and everything will be happy. But it wasn't like that at all. So, but it was an interesting experience because the things that I learned, I've kind of taken with me, you know, throughout my life. You know, there's still lessons that I learned back then that I'm kind of using now, really valuable things that I learned. So after
They're transferable.
Sorry?
They're transferable.
Yes, very transferable. A lot of people at the time said to me, oh, you're wasting your talent. Why? You know, you can't stop making shoes. But at that time, I understood that creativity is an energy, and you can just use that energy in different ways. So, which is what I've done. So after I kind of closed my my footwear little business, I then decided I want to make films because I'd faced a lot of discrimination. I thought, you know, there's so much ignorance. I just want to make films and just, you know, put more black stories on screen. I was a huge fan of Spike Lee, and you know, just devoured all of the work that he did and bought all the books that he recommended. And
tell me about his aesthetic and how that might have influenced you.
His aesthetic. The thing I like about his storytelling technique is that it always completes a full circle. If you watch his films, there's a way that he makes films where he'll start off at one point and then he'll do this full character arc and end where he started, but at a different, slightly different kind of point of view. He always seems to do that, and he always has this tracking shot where it's like there's a couple of characters on this dolly and he kind of zooms in and tracks at the same time, kind of rack focus. So like the background's always doing some kind of weird thing. He does that in all of his films. So those are these two kind of signature things. In his early films, he always appeared. Actually, I think he still does. He still appears in his films. Virtually all of his early work, he always appeared in his films or made a cameo role. So it's like a nod to Woody Allen, because he always spoke in his books about Woody Allen kind of making cameos. So he kind of did that. You know, virtually all of his films, he does that as well. So, but I like his no holds bar approach to filmmaking. He tells it as he sees it. And, you know, I really respect that. And I really respect the fact that he hasn't changed. You know, he's still this kind of maverick guerrilla filmmaker, you know, speaks his mind. He hasn't lost that passion. So that's what I really like.
I love that, because no one else can see these images that I've got, and if I try and get off my the live to go and look at them so we can discuss them, which is the whole reason why I do a live anyway, because I enjoy having the conversation, but moreover I like to look at work and I like to show everyone else the work. So what we're going to do is I'm going to post the work anyway
Right.
after the live has gone out so that
Yes.
people can see it.
Okay.
But it, you you have the work, don't you?
What am I?
But in your mind, you have the work.
Yes, I have the work in my mind. Yes.
What was the first one that you gave to me? I think it was something Afrofuturist.
Yes, because you said that I didn't necessarily have to post my work. I could
No,
post work
no.
that I'm inspired by as
Yeah.
well. So the first one was Manzel Bowman. So he creates digital collages, and they're
Mm-hmm.
very Afrofuturistic. Actually, I wonder if I, because I could bring it up on my little if I bring it
Because I
up
would have
on
done it
my
on my own iPad,
iPad,
but it's been sent off for fixing.
and then yes, I could do. Oh, it's not the full thing. It's not the full. Hang on. What I could do. Oh, yeah, here we go. Can you
Yeah,
see
we can
that?
see that. Beautiful. I can see
Yes.
the relationship between this and your sort of language.
Yes.
Um,
And I love his work. It's this kind of really mystical kind of, it just transports me to another time and place when I see that work. It's just beautiful. So he's done a whole series, you know, and they're very powerful because, you know, he uses the African figure and the way he kind of reconfigures them and connects them to the cosmos and everything else. So that's kind of what I do with my cosmological work, kind of bringing Africa into the frame because, you know, there's all this knowledge that's there that's not automatically thought of when you think about astronomy and cosmology. So
mm,
you know, those things kind of need to be brought
brought
into
to the fore.
perspective. Yeah, yeah,
Um, I really enjoy looking at your work because the cosmology behind it is not done in a very obvious way.
yeah.
So it's almost like part of the fabric. And the way in which you draw out your figures is also very interesting to me because it reminds me of sort of dresses and the twills
Yeah.
that you have. So the whiteness of the porcelain paper is reflective of some of your fashion influence as well,
Mm.
I would say. But also the sense that it's almost like it brings about the feeling of hope, you know,
Mm.
from the blues and the blacks and the whites. There's a sort of interesting junction there of colors in space and time, which is
Mm.
practically what you discuss. But moreover, you do have works like the Windrush series that you spoke about.
Yes.
Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, because I kind of go between the cosmological um, stuff, which I love because as a kid I was really into Star Trek. I was a real Trekkie and, um, you know, really nerdy. And I used to watch things like The Sky at Night and things like that. So it's important to honor that side of me. And, you know, there is that side of me that's um, really spiritual and alternative. I'm not religious, but I believe in a higher power. So all of those things matter to me. So that's that one strand of work, and with that, I'm hoping to tap into something that's very ancient and
Mm-hmm.
mystical. Because if you go back far enough, before the construct of colonialism, before there was this notion of what black is as we know it today,
Mm.
there was this all these ancient cultures that kind of revered nature and looked to the stars and kind of built these monuments to the planets and, you know, all of this stuff. So by making those cosmological works, I'm hoping to tap into people's ancient memory that's embedded in our DNA, something that you can't tangibly explain, but when you see it, you kind of feel something.
And you know it in a way.
Yes, and people feel things when they see those works, but they can't maybe say, oh, I know what that is. They just feel something, which is nice, you know. I want to kind of, you know, and so in that respect, there is hope, because there's that universality about that work and about those kind of sensory experiences that you have with that work. And then with the Windrush stuff, I started my first drawing on that subject when I was doing my MA. So I did an MA at Wimbledon, UAL Wimbledon, between 2016 and 2018. So during my first year, I made the drawing because at the time I didn't think enough was being said about that generation who came here, helped to build, you know, post-war Britain. And I thought, you know, why aren't more people speaking about them? So I just felt the need to do it. And also I'd found my mum's passport. My mum passed away 23 years ago. So I found an old passport and I opened the passport, and it says to allow the bearer to walk freely without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer assistance where necessary, you know, or words to that effect. And I thought that wasn't their experience when they came here. So that was the starting point of the drawing, because I'd started, often when I start work, I might have a vague kind of feeling about what the work might be. So I knew I wanted to do something with three figures. So I plotted these three figures on this large piece of paper. But it's only when I opened my mum's passport that I thought, this is the work that I've got to make. And so I'd use the Three Graces as a trope to map a story of...
What are the Three Graces? Tell us.
Three Graces are a kind of a classical trope that's used in Western art. So you always find the Three Graces, and I can't remember what the original Three Graces stand for, but even in a lot of classical sculpture, you'll find these three women kind of...
Is it justice? One of them being justice,
yes,
truth, and I forget what the third one is. It's usually justice, truth, and something like scholastica.
Something along that line.
It can be interchangeable.
Yes, so I thought it'd be nice to use a Western classical trope to map the story of, you know, the journey of arrival and settlement in this country. So I did that. So, and also I used, you know, three ages of women as well. So there's the young maiden, there's the fully grown woman who's, you know, of childbearing age, and then you have the crone, the old wise woman. So I kind of played with those tropes as well within this drawing. So there's lots of different layers. The women can be seen as three different women, or they can be seen as one woman at three different stages of her life. And so with the first woman, Arrival, she is very much, you know, going to another country to kind of seek your fortune, to kind of, you know, to fulfill your dreams. So it's full of hope. But on that figure's dress, there's this gold floral motif. So when I Googled Windrush in 2016, I got one of the things that came up in the search was this William Morris pattern. And when I looked at the pattern, when I downloaded the image and then I did more research about it, I discovered that it was called Windrush.
Oh, wow.
I put it on the dress. And and then the middle figure is definitely my memories of kind of growing up, because in that drawing there's kind of my mum's generation's kind of memories, stories that they've kind of told, kind of universal stories, but also my generation's memories of growing up, you know, in the 70s and 80s, and what a struggle it was for us as well. So it's an intergenerational piece. So that middle piece, it's got on it, it's got the Union flag, but also it's got a protest march which happened in Notting Hill. Claudia Jones is at the helm of it, and she's the editor of the West India Gazette, Britain's first black newspaper.
Mm.
And then, you know, there are other motifs on there as well. So when I was actually making that work, because I started it in 2016, and someone in the studio next to me said, "Oh, is that about Brexit?" Because, you know, the referendum vote had happened. So she thought it was about Brexit. And I thought, well, these issues are still relevant today.
They are.
Yes. And
Um,
then with the elder figure at the end, at that time in 2016, you know, most of that generation would say, well, this is my country now. And, you know, we're settled and, you know, we're really happy and we're content and everything else. But I had this sense of trepidation when I was making that piece. So I put on that figure some armor.
I think I
And
saw it.
that armor, at that time on my course, we did this little mini project at the British Museum in the prints and drawings room. And I wanted to see Leonardo da Vinci's warrior drawing. It's a beautiful drawing, drawn in silver point. And so it's a figure wearing armor. So I put that armor on that elder woman in my drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And I used silver wax to kind of create that armor.
Mm.
So yes, so there's so many layers in that piece.
I was
So
going to say something along the lines of the Rin Wash itself sailed over water, and above was the sky as the only
mm,
companion. So there was stars also in that sense. Its work is a bit more abstracted from that, but also reflective of the idea of journey and the idea of arrival and acceptance and place and how there was there was a discomfort within the body politique, and in a way I think the way that you use your image is quite telling, because it speaks of within you are all of these stories waiting to in essence get out and find expression through your hand.
yes, that's so true. And interestingly enough, I don't actually see any of those drawings as self-portraits uh, because there's a there's I'm obviously in the work, not just
By
physically, but
hand.
there's always a part of me, there's always a connection with me in the work, but I don't see them as self-portraits because it's not just about my biography. I see it as a collective story. That's what I'm doing. I'm telling stories of about a collective experience. So then it becomes bigger than me. So even though they come through me, these stories, they're not. It's not about me. Not about me at all.
They're not of they're not of you, but with you.
Yes, they kind of yes, they come through me, but they're not about me.
I
Even
like.
though it's my image, that's kind of
No,
so it's complicated.
I think
Yeah.
that's fair, and I think the complication of it is something that I find quite exciting, because
Mm,
you would expect it to have a very sort of um, how can I put it? To have a very straightforward and very sort of, at the end of it, very sort of at surface level reaction.
Mm. Yeah.
And that by itself isn't really
It's not it. And I think,
it.
yeah, because there are people who, it's interesting because I always like doing exhibitions because I like overhearing what people say about the work. And some people, if they realize that I've drawn myself, they say, oh, self-portrait. No, it's not self-portrait. And then when people spend time with the work, they realize that there's something else going on. So that's interesting. Some people don't get it. Some people don't understand how you can draw yourself and it not be a self-portrait. And I kind of understand that because years ago, I used to look at Cindy Sherman's work and I thought, why is she always in her work? And why is she, you know? So I used to ask those kind of questions. And, oh, and now I get it. I totally get it. And the thing is, once I gridded up the drawing and transferred, you know, enlarged, you know, the picture that I've taken of myself and put it on the paper, it's no longer me.
It isn't.
No.
The
So once it's on the
representation,
paper, it's no longer me.
the
And that's
representation,
when,
but not necessarily
yeah.
you.
So
And
that's when the conversation begins. That's when I start having a dialogue with the work. That's when I start asking the work, what do you want me to do with you?
does the
So,
work speak to you in a
yeah,
way? Does it
yeah.
have that very auditory notion where it's almost like an oracle or a depository of voices in the same
Mm,
way as someone like Mikhail Bakhtin talks about the novel being a way in which you can create many different languages, many different ideas of self in one, how can I put it, in one image.
mm. Yes, that is very true. It is very, very true. Because if you notice, even though I draw myself all the time, or at least my image, they all look different. There's no two that look exactly the same. So it's like reconstructing and reconfiguring this image, and it's, yeah, there's this constant variation. I suppose that's why I don't see them as me, because they resemble me, and they
It's
could
a
be family
resemblance,
members,
a
and
vague
maybe,
resemblance, but it's
yeah.
not you. You know, it's not you. It's not like you're telling stories. I think it's a very interesting idea of a person of color playing with ideas that your work is meant to be reflective primarily of your circumstance and of yourself,
Yes.
rather than it just being the concerns at hand. It's, you know, it's a likeness to you in the
Mm,
same way as someone would like create, like Cindy Sherman, for example,
yeah.
who creates images of undoubtedly of her likeness, but it's she takes on a character in the
Mm,
same way as you might invoke a muse, which is why in kind of like ancient Greek times, at the beginning of a performance, you call down the muse of character, the
mm,
muse of story, the muse of this, the muse of that, and you
yes.
invoke their spirit and you channel it through the performance. So
That's
it's
what I
it's
do when I
it's
take
a
the reference
channeling.
images. I'm channeling. And I suppose, because when I was kind of doing film, I spent 10 years making shorts. And at one stage, I thought, I don't actually understand what actors do. So I better take an acting class. So for 2 years, I took evening classes at Morley College. Um, and I had the experience of being directed as well, because there was a course that I did where we had to direct a scene from a play, but also be directed. So we had to kind of pair up. One directs the other, and then the other directs the other. And the worst thing I found was someone, as a director, not knowing what they wanted from you as a performer. And I thought,
Mm.
I'm never ever going to do that to someone that I'm directing film with. And also what I realize is you don't tell an actor what to do. What you do is you inspire, you have this dialogue, you have a dialogue, and it's like
You breathe air
they
into them.
interpret, yes, they interpret what they feel the character is about. You, as a director, kind of have a discussion about what you feel the character is about, and ultimately it's like a negotiation. It's a dance, and that's what the performance is, and then the actor embodies that character. So when I'm doing my reference images, I am channeling whatever I want to convey. Because a friend of mine, I met up with a friend of mine earlier in the week, and she asked me if I ever film myself. And I did try that, but it's not the same, because I find that if I've got a timer on, 10 seconds, I know I've got to get into character. I've got to channel what it is I want to project within that 10-second time frame. Whereas if I've got a video running, then, and I've noticed that if I try and video myself, I'm not fully present.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So, because when we're talking about presence, are we
Yeah.
discussing the fact that your work is of you in the same way, but not, it's of you, but not you?
Yes.
So there's that kind of illusion between of you and not you, but you also want yourself to be present within that. Do you want to discuss a little bit about how you square that circle?
Yes, because actors, because I used to watch this series, I think it still comes on TV, Inside the Actors Studio. And they've interviewed famous actors, you know, gosh, Al Pacino, you know, all of these really big name actors. And the one thing they talk about is presence, because the thing is, you can always tell a bad performance. You always say, oh, he's a bad actor or whatever. And it's because he's not fully in the moment with that character, with that being. So it is this sense of embodiment. You have to inhabit that character and totally be at one. So it's almost like another entity has entered your body, and you become that entity for that scene or for that, you know. And it's kind of what I
Possession.
do. Yeah. So I kind of, you know, the camera's on, 10 seconds, right, run into position. And then it's like, and so I guess people sense something because of the gaze, because I think it's all in the gaze. I think that's what people connect to.
It is all in the gaze, and I find that your work is almost cubist in the way that it kind of lays on multiple dimensionalities onto one surface. So you have the self that's acting out all of these different narratives and mapped onto a body, which is the human body, but isn't also the human body. It's a vehicle that acts out these stories. So
Yes.
it's a fictional space that you're creating, a scene, if you would like, in one image, where you have almost like in cinema, there's that whole shot where you have a through shot, when you take someone through the whole sweep of a film in one fell swoop, and that's quite overwhelming sometimes. Do you not find that overwhelming, and there's an overwhelm?
No, because when I set up the image to be taken, I'm so still that I don't feel any, you know, I'm not even thinking about what this image could become. I'm just there in the now. And then it's only afterwards, you know, when I'm going through the images, actually I might even just think, coming to the studio, I think, oh, I feel like doing some reference images, and just play with characters or memories or feelings. And then I might not use those images until a year later, you know.
So do you feel like meaning is secondary to your exploration? So when you're creating, is it because you feel like this is something that I want to explore now, and then the
Yes.
meaning behind it is something that becomes apparent over time?
Yes. And I think that's why the works take so long, because my big pieces, I spend about 3 months on them. And 'cause it's not the drawing that takes the time, it's
It's the
actually,
thinking.
it's actually the work, listening to the work and just extracting what this narrative is. That's the thing that takes time. And I kind of, um, I'm inspired to kind of do a body of work because I might just get a flash of an image, and the flash of the image is so quick that it's almost like I'm trying to chase what that thing is. So my whole journey is finding out what that flash of inspiration, that image is.
So you work backwards, in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I find that the most delightful practice, because I also do a similar thing when it comes to my art practice, which is curation.
Mm,
Mind you, there's a lot of noise coming from the back. I live quite opposite a very busy road, but that's none the by. But when it comes to my practice and the way that I make my pots, I usually think of them as an image and then work backwards from that image. And
mm,
it's interesting that you also have a similar working backwards, and and a way your language can sort of is also, in a way, how can I put it? Your language is read. You're reading back to front in a way, and
mm.
that in itself is an interesting way of creation. Because if you think about it, you need to have your your mind's eye needs to see the end point for you
Yes,
to be able to go through the process. For some people, it's about the process and not the end result.
yeah, yes. And it is this eye, yes, not these ones that that I'm kind of guided by, because this kind of the new works that I'm starting now, um, I'm kind of working towards a show, towards the end of the year. And I had literally three flashes of images, because I thought, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to do for that. And then these three flashes of images that I had over a kind of 2 week period, I thought, okay, I'm not meant to do the work that I thought I was going to do. I have to do this, but I don't know what it is, but I've got to do it. And yes, it is. Yeah, it is. It is that kind of working backwards, because I have a big picture. I have an overall big picture, and the big picture is like a feeling. It's almost like, because
That's the
sometimes,
aesthetic, a
yeah,
feeling.
because sometimes I have a flash of what the end result, like the end exhibition is going to look like, but it's so quick and it's so fleeting. But the impressions remains with me. And for
Mm.
me, my journey, part of the journey is to recreate that feeling that I had from the impression.
And I really adore that very sort of um, kind of working backwards to work forwards element, because you
Mm,
have the end image through your mind's eye that you then try and manifest into something in reality. And I think just talking about manifestation as
yes.
a trend as well, many people feel like the manifestation is something that you project forward and then it comes to you. But
Mm,
whereas manifestation, for it to really work, for it to have a real sort of bearing in your life, you have to also do the work towards the aim.
yes. And you have to have a clear intention, and clear intention in that, even though I don't know what works I'm making, so it sounds a bit weird that I say you have to have a clear intention, but I think the intention when I work on things is that it's the feeling dimension is the clear intention.
Mm.
And also I always wish to inspire in some way with the works, so, and
I love the
also
word
feed people.
inspire that you use,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it kind of,
inspire and feed people as well at the same time, on an unconscious level. So those things, I carry. And then I always endeavour to listen to the work, because sometimes this thinking brain gets in the way. Because sometimes the work will tell me to do something, and 2 weeks later I haven't done it, because I'm thinking it doesn't make sense, because this brain is taking over. And then eventually I have to yield to it. And once I put that element on there, everything else kind of around it works. And I think, oh, why didn't I just bloody do it? You know.
sometimes you
So
have to go through the process in order for you to work out the problems and iron out the kinks. And sometimes
yes,
when we think about problems, we always think about them as something that is intrinsically bad. A problem is a word that is associated with bad, but
yeah,
problems are also have the opposite. You know, they can have the opposite um, ramification, whereas you can see them as a means to an end, because you have your manifestation, you have your goal in
mm,
mind, you have your project, and you inspire air into it. You inspire your breath, like the wind inspired the windrush and took it across the seas and brought it
mm,
here, and has caused a whole set of events to happen that has led us to this moment that we're experiencing now. So
yes,
there's that idea of manifestation as
yeah,
it being a cause and effect thing, infinite regress in a way. You know, one action impacting another, impacting another, impacting another.
mm,
Um,
yes. And also, the thing about manifestation is that you have to meet it halfway. It's like you said, you can't just kind of think, oh, I want this, and then, not do the work and it comes. You have to do the work, and then it will find you. It really will. So, but you would have done the work. So in essence, you would have met it halfway, because if you do the work, you're moving towards it anyway. But
mm.
even though you're not physically saying, "Oh, right, I'm one step closer today," but you've got to do the work. And if it's internal work, or it's a bit of both, isn't it? Because you have to be ready for that thing that you say that you want to manifest too.
Because it looks good from the outside at points. You not think it's always, someone else's success or someone else's manifestation and someone else's journey. You
Mm,
you see it as it's sometimes written in the stars, and you think that the stars aligned on them. They said it, and then it happened. Like using that sort of that language, that
yeah,
metaphor that's been a running thread for our discussion.
yeah,
And you don't always meet things in a holistic way. You don't always see the fact that they may have had many failures before they or perceived failures, because one
yeah,
person's failure is another one's success. You
yeah.
know, um, especially when it comes to cinematic work and the nature of your work, which I'm likening it to a soft cubism. It has a soft cubist edge to it, with a representational figurative slant and an Afrofuturist kind of element to it, which is so exciting to see, especially because with black figuration currently, you always get this very one-dimensional
Mm,
idea of black figuration, as it
yeah,
being mainly something that is writing back to history, and the writing back by itself is not always reflective of a wider argument that is being
mm,
made. There's enough of an argument being made. Okay, I'm writing back to history. I'm creating black bodies in order to fill the void in the canon that has since existed. But
yes.
beyond that, there's no real tethered reality, or
Mm,
there's no other sort of theme running through it in the background.
yeah. And I think, yes, I, yeah, I suppose I want to provide an alternative view of, um, what black art practice can be. I suppose I have my own unique way of doing things, and and this is the exciting thing about being an artist, because you create, if you're true to yourself, you'll create your own unique language that nobody else has, and
Mm.
that's the exciting thing, because when you're at school and you're different, it's like you're weird, no one wants to be your friend. But being different
In
as
the
an
art world,
artist or as a
is
creative
yeah.
practitioner, that's really cool, because you can put all of your quirks and stuff in your work, and that makes your work that's what makes you kind of stand out, which is quite nice. So
Wow. I think we've got to the point where I like to kind of flip the switch a bit, and we've discussed your work, and we've discussed the nature of it, how it comes about, and how it manifests in a visual sense. But
yeah.
let's talk about your inspirations. What are the things that breathe air into you,
Mm.
and push and propel you forward into your journey? You've
Gosh.
spoken about Spike Lee, so we can't
Yeah.
speak about Spike Lee anymore. We need to move it on to someone else or something else.
I'm
Like,
inspired
I
by
mean it in the
loads.
most secular point. Like, what do you like to
I'm
look
inspired
at?
by a
Vogue
lot.
magazines, or copies of books that you're reading, stuff like that. Like the
Yeah.
ephemera, the stuff that doesn't usually get picked up.
Yeah. Um, I'm kind of, I take a lot of inspiration from all over the place. I love fashion, so I'm always looking at fashion magazines and stuff anyway. I think once you've worked in fashion, it never really leaves you. But books I'm reading at the moment. So, uh, The Way of Qigong, the art and science of Chinese energy healing.
Ooh,
So I'm
tell us
reading that
about
at the
that.
moment. Yeah, because about 20 years ago, I used to do Qigong, and it was pretty hardcore because I don't know if you know anything about Qigong, but there's a certain way that you're supposed to stand. And this Qigong master um, was a Shaolin monk for like 14 years before he left that and came to live in the West, got married and had kids. But
Mm.
he had this hardcore way. So he didn't teach us any moves at all. So for 18 months, I was standing in Wuji stance, and the energy had to move us. So until we were moved by the energy, he refused to teach us anything. And he used to come into the class sometimes, and if the energy wasn't right, he would just give us an hour lecture and send us home.
Mm.
So I started doing qigong. Started again about 2 months ago, and I'd forgotten how
Ooh.
powerful it is, because I do Reiki. So because I do this energy healing work now, I can actually feel um, the chi when I do qigong. I didn't feel that 20 years ago. So that's so a lot of the kind of philosophy, because I like martial arts, and I like martial arts because of the philosophy, the way of thinking, and this whole thing about self-cultivation and discipline
Mm.
and intention. So all of that, I really respect that. So that's kind of, I'm
Because I
devouring
did jujitsu for
that.
a while, so we
Yeah,
have that in common. Martial arts have always kind of been a part of my life since I was around 10.
yeah.
I've not taken. I did karate and I did jujitsu. I think I did a bit of judo as well at one
Mm.
point. I want to take back control and and
Yeah.
and,
And it
and
does, it focuses the mind as well, because I found that since I've been doing Qigong, I'm less stressed. And it's like, because my brain can go like a million times an hour. So I'm kind of a lot more aligned. And I do, the Qigong that I do is called Heaven and Earth Qigong, and it's to line all the energy centers. And I really feel that is, so yeah, so it's cool.
amazing.
Another thing I'm reading is Homecoming: Voices of the Windrush Generation, which is a lovely, lovely, lovely book. And it's just short anecdotes. Um, So this man, Colin Grant, has just did loads of interviews with people. And so it's just tiny little short stories.
They're the best.
About, yeah, so it's just a really lovely book.
Who's
Really
the
lovely.
image of, who's the artist who took the, do you know who the person who took the image on the cover? Let's just look at the cover again. It's quite beautiful.
Yes, that's, yeah, because it's very, that's a well-worn cover, isn't it? I mean, I've seen that image so many times. Cover photograph, Howard Gray. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And I am also reading Style in My DNA, Lorna Holder. And she was a fashion designer back in the 70s.
Well, she was one of the first British black fashion designers, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yeah. Because she graduated from, I can't remember what college she graduated, but she was the first black student.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. You know, this whole thing about manifestation, right? So when I decided that I was going to spend the rest of this year kind of uncovering Windrush stories and kind of thinking about growing up in this country and just having these kind of anecdotal kind of stories through my work, all of a sudden, you know, I go on YouTube, suddenly there's something there connected to, you know, what. And so I'd never really heard of Lorna Holder, and I went on YouTube for something else, and then it popped up an interview with her, maybe because I was looking at all the fashion stuff. Yeah, it's probably because of that. But she popped up and someone interviewed her about this book. And it's 70 years of Caribbean influence on fashion and style in Britain. And I thought, I've got to get that book. And it's amazing.
Colour is something that the Caribbean influence introduced.
Yeah, because she was saying that, you know, when people came here, you know, in the 50s and 60s, particularly kind of mid-50s to very, very early 60s, British people weren't really wearing very colourful clothing because, you know, there was rationing, the whole post-war thing. So a lot of people were in utilitarian dress and, you know, so then you've got all these Caribbean people in brightly coloured clothes, loads of patterns, etc. So, you know, there was that kind of early influence on British style. And then I suppose the swinging 60s happened and then all of that changed because, you know, suddenly with Mary Quant, you know, you had kind of teenagers had their own fashion, they had their own style.
Shortest hemlines.
So, yeah. But in the 50s, you know, when the very, very early people came here, there wasn't any of that. You know, a lot of tweeds and very, you know, hard-wearing fabrics. Yeah, no fine cloth or anything like that. So it was interesting. It was interesting hearing her speak about this. So yeah,
she quite a lot of discrimination, didn't she?
Yeah. I mean, I did with shoes as well. I used to have people knocking on my studio door because I got a lot of publicity with my shoes. And but I wasn't necessarily in the publicity photos, it was just my shoes. So people would come to my studio wanting shoes made, and then I'd open the door, oh, I didn't know you were black, and they'd literally turn and walk up, you know, walking over. Yeah, so yeah, I kind of, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, what do you know, 70s, 80s, early 90s, that's what it was.
Different world, was it?
Different world.
Well, guys, I want you guys to start asking questions. So we're gonna have the question and answer bit now. So if you would love to, you know, pop your questions in the question box, not in the comment box, I'll start taking those. But I love your selection of stories. They do speak to your chi, to your energy, and I really enjoyed the interview so far. We're also waiting for people to ask questions. Come on, everyone, ask your questions. Ask your questions. Even put them in the comment box. I'll see if I can find them. Georgian Diaspora, my friend, Georgian Diaspora, has just said that she worked with Lorna.
Oh, right. Ah, awesome.
Okay, someone just said, asked if I'm going to save this interview because they missed the first part. Yes, the interview will be saved. They all are released straight after they go live on Instagram TV. And what I'm going to start doing is also archiving them on YouTube, just in case something happens with Instagram.
Yeah.
Because even today, they've decided to remove the photo sharing and have,
Oh, right.
yeah, that's what's happened. They've removed the photo sharing function, have included another function, which means that I can invite people to join on
Yes.
as like third and fourth people, but that's not really why we're here. We're here
Yeah.
for your craft and to get your stuff across. So it just means I have to experiment more. But do you have any questions for me whilst the questions for you come in? I'm encouraging you to ask questions, guys. Ask them.
I missed your the show that you curated in October. Do you want to
With
speak a
Othello.
bit about, yeah, with Othello?
It was called Cataloging Emotions, and Othello and I sat down and looked at his what's the word? And looked at his current practice.
Yeah.
So he's a multidisciplinary artist who primarily used to work in photography and has a lot of sort of influence in terms of moments. He likes to capture moments in a different way to you, but still quite in that sphere of the energy and the color spectrum. And that was the show. So we had his his portraits that he took of, how can I put it, of men, and his sort of some of it was based on Masculinity Project, and other bits of it was also based on his current work with the memories that he was
Yes.
working with during the pandemic. So if you'd like to see any of those work, we can even do a studio visit. I've been to your studios before, by the way, on a drunken night out. Let's see if I come back again. Someone just asked, do you feel like you try to deal with temporality in the same way as filmmakers do?
Yes, because I saw a question before that as well. Somebody was asking if I've got any exhibitions coming up.
That
And
too, I was going to come up to that.
Yeah, and I just, okay, so I'll answer, yeah, the temporality thing. I've often thought about that because of my filmmaking background, and it's something that is in the back of my mind. I want to find a way of doing that that's uniquely me, because there are a lot of artists who kind of do kind of the film frame, kind of landscape, kind of, and cinematic. And I would like to do it in a different way. So yes, it's in the back of my mind, parked there. Once I've figured out how I can do it, I'll definitely do it.
Great.
Yeah.
And the exhibition that you have coming up at the end of the year?
Yeah, I've got five shows that I'm in this year.
Oh wow, well done.
So
that's a lot of work.
There's a lot. Well, I've made the work for the other ones because there was a Carl Freeman group show that was supposed to be last year November, but then it's been postponed. So we're waiting for when they can reopen that. And 198 Gallery, because I was shortlisted for the Women of Colour Award. So all the shortlisted, thank you. So all the shortlisted awardees will be in a show that's supposed to be mid-May. Drawing Room London. I've got a small piece in there because they've got their drawing biennial, which is a fundraiser for the drawing room. So that'll be in May. I'm in a show in Belgium in October, and it's an arts and science conference. So I've got a video piece that's going to be in there, and then I've got my solo at Tiwani in November. So that's fine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for that. Hopefully they'll invite me to dinner for the first time ever. So Black Art Now, does Miss Watkiss have a current or upcoming exhibition? We've answered that question.
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
The
meaning of the boat.
Yeah, and the objects in your work. Thanks. That's from Serena.
Okay. Yes. So that that image that I did of the two women holding a boat, that was my final piece for my MA show. And I was researching indigo and its use on the plantations, you know, during the slavery. And so it's interesting because after reading a lot of really difficult accounts of plantation life, the thing that occurred to me was that all of these people who had died weren't afforded a proper burial, you know, because there are people who committed suicide by jumping off the ship rather than be enslaved, and then there are those who actually, you know, died by other means. And so the work then became a memorial piece. I thought about things like 9 nights, which is something in Jamaican culture, when someone dies, then there's a wake for 9 nights, because it's believed that it takes 9 nights for the duck
to pass on.
Exactly. So I thought about all of these traditions. So the work then became like a memorial piece, a tribute to those ancestors that had passed on but weren't afforded a burial. So the boat then becomes a container. It's a container that took the bodies from Africa to, you know, the Americas, but also it's almost also like a coffin as well. There's so many meanings that could be
attached,
that could be attached to that vessel. And there was I was reading Edward Glissant at the time, Poetics of Relation, and he talks about the open boat as well. And so all of those things I was thinking about. Also, at that time, there was a performance, Taryn Simon. Do you know the artist Taryn Simon?
No.
She is Gwyneth Paltrow's sister-in-law, but she does these kind of, she creates these performance pieces. And so what she had done was, it was an Art Angel project, and it was this subterranean space in Angel, which I didn't know existed. And she got these mourners from all around the world to lament within this subterranean space. And
that must have been heavy.
It was. I thought it'd be really depressing, but it wasn't. It was so moving. It was beautiful. You know, you had Eastern European, and they had I don't know what that instrument's called. You know, where it's like a
oh, you mean
it's got a piano key, and yes,
accordion.
Yes, accordion. So they were playing the accordion. You had African women singing. All these different traditions from around the world around mourning, and it was just hauntingly beautiful to go into these different. So the subterranean space all had these different cavernous, like, bits that you walked into. So you could walk into one space and then walk out again. It was beautiful. And so I came out of that, and I was lucky enough because I was, you know, at college, UAL had arranged that we could have like a private thing, and then we met the artist afterwards. And she said that she spoke about how it was difficult for some of those mourners, for her to even get some of these mourners into the country. So there's all this politics of, you know, particularly those from African countries, you know. So it became more than, you know, it was interesting. So I came out of that and I thought, how do I convey a sense of loss through drawing? And so that fueled my work as well.
Because your work is also sparse in its detail. Like there's a zen quality to sparseness. But I want to move on to the next question because it links on. You have a very specific color palette. Is it inspired by your love of the celestial?
It is, in a way. I mean, it's weird. Ever since my very first drawing, Lost Found, I used blue in that. And I suppose by the time I'd gotten to my MA and was researching indigo, I thought I need to use blue in a more conscious way. So it's partly love of celestial, but I suppose most of that motivation came out of researching indigo. Because also, while I researched indigo and its, you know, and its connection to the slave trade, there's also another side of indigo, which is a very sacred color. So it's been used in burial rites, you know, in African traditions. There's the Adire cloth, Nigeria, and the Dogon use it. There's the Telem as well. They wrap their dead in indigo cloth. So there's all of these kind of very spiritual, cosmological kind of associations with them. So after I'd done that piece with the two women holding the boat, I then started to really amp up the blue in my work. And so that's kind of the result of the show that I did last year with Andrew at Tiwani, because I thought, if I'm going to use blue, let me use blue and just, you know, just put it, you know,
out there,
ramp it up. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this live. I really have, and you're such a generous person for sharing so much with me and with the audience. There's more questions. Woo! More questions are in the question box. How do we acquire your work? So it's probably through the gallery, isn't it?
Yes, we have to go through my gallery now, Tiwani Contemporary. So yes, you'll have to contact them.
Mention my name. I've introduced you guys.
Yes.
So what else is going on? Well, that's the end of my sort of formal questions. Yeah. But I don't know if Charmaine wants to say something, or, you know, wants to, you know, bring this to a close with any last remarks.
I've really enjoyed it, actually. This is my first ever live. I was just freaking out. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm just going to not.
I'm sorry, especially because of what happened at the beginning, because I was in another call and I had to do the reel, and then I had to come on, and it took 6 minutes more than it was meant to have. I hope I didn't make your heart skip too fast.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, one more question. There's one more question.
One more question. Go on. Okay. Bring it in. One more question? Are they typing?
Someone said, yeah, Blackheart now says one more question.
Are they typing?
No, I don't see anything coming up. Oh, Russell Tovey, hello.
Yeah, Russell Tovey's just coming.
So yes, so I've mentioned the show, Russell, so people know that there's a show coming up.
Amazing.
Yes. So Russell will be curating that show.
Oh, really?
Yes, at Carl Freeman. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, really looking forward to it. Yes.
What was I going to say? Seeing as everyone keeps on still finding it.
Oh, are my fashion designs on the web? No, because that was a long time. That was another life, and they were shoes. So no, I haven't put my shoes on the web because I don't want anyone copying my design. Because you know what? I was ahead of my time. I was way ahead of my time because I see stuff that I designed back in a day being worn.
Oh,
So,
being worn. Is
exactly.
that what you
So
said?
no, I shall keep those close to my heart. Only closest people to me see those shoes.
Do you wear them when you're on private views?
No, it's weird. You know what? Because I never had time to make shoes for myself, so I made shoes for everybody else. So no, I don't have anything really. No. Do I
Well,
have
you still have
medium
to.
I want to explore?
Yes, that's a great question.
I would love to. Oh, sculpture. I'd love to do sculpture, and I think because I actually thought that I'd end up doing sculpture because I've done shoes and used to making 3D and missed making. Um, I thought I'd be doing sculpture, so I would like to do. Yeah, I'd like to sculpture and installation.
Well, I think there's no better time than in the present. I always say there's no better time than now, Charmaine.
I would need the headspace, and I'd need perhaps a long residency to explore those. That's the kind of thing that you
We
kind of
can negotiate. We
explore.
want anyone watching who wants to give Charmaine a residency so she can explore future
Somewhere hot, Caribbean or something like that would be really
somewhere hot. I
yeah.
don't know, Christophily,
Yes, Trinidad.
Trinidad. Bring us. We're manifesting it. We're gonna work towards it.
Yes.
So well. Um, if that's the end of that, I will be
Yeah.
posting this as soon as I get the chance, which is straight after it goes live. I would like to thank everyone in the audience who's so lovingly been sending in their questions and supporting. Love. Additionally, can't thank my interconversationalist today, Charmaine Watkiss, for being a very generous and an open speaker and having allowed me this opportunity to get to know her work and her practice, which I hope to see grow and we can geek out together more and more often over these factors. So guys, thank you for coming.
Aw. Yes, thanks. Yes, thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for listening.
And listening, and
Yeah.
there's so many of you that I have to catch up with at another point, but right now I would just like to say thank you. And tomorrow, before I go, I have another interview with Helen Downey of Unskilled Worker fame. So I can't wait to have her. And
Thank you, Ali.
and yes, thank you, Charmaine, again.
Aw,
I'm
thank
going
you.
to now take you guys off air.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.